Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Guruji Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Saparshad Gaur Hari ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Ramanju ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Shyam. Hare Krishna. So, we're going to pick up from where we left off last night, along with a short little recap. And I wanted to share a few quotes from this very beautiful book of the teachings of Srila Brahma Nirvana Maharaj in his letters. Really cherish this. I just got it a week or so ago, but it's like an encyclopedia for spiritual lessons and teachings from, like a realized soul who has lived a life of service and had so much experience in, you could say, spiritual leadership. So a lot of important lessons there. And it's interesting because I just picked it up, and the first page talks about things I was thinking of for today, which is interesting. It's really nice because in the contents, it lists all the topics. So it's just really nectar. So I wanted to touch on just a few of those points from the first page that also go along with the theme for tonight, which is we're studying the third verse of Shikshastakam, Srinadapi Sunichena Todora Vasahishuna Amanina Mananeda Kirtanya Sadahari, and how that corresponds to the third pair of the names of the Mahamantra. So Hare Krishna, this is Krishna Krishna. So we're talking about the third section of the day. We've been talking about, what is God doing now? And we're going to try to build that app, the What is God Doing Now app. What is Mahaprabhu doing? What is Krishna doing? There's so many apps that give us so many kinds of material notifications. We should have at least one app that gives us spiritual notifications. Ding! Oh, what is Gaura doing now? What is Krishna doing now? So that's something we meditate upon while also trying to take lessons from our preceptors about how to advance in our spiritual journey. And so that's the beauty of this presentation by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the one who, you could say, amalgamated this idea of the sadhana path while also giving a glimpse of the siddha state, the perfected state, while also understanding the journey. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the one who really kind of presented that idea in his Bhajan Rahasya, showing how the Mahamantra that we chant every day as our, you could say, most distinguishing characteristic, we call ourselves what? Hare Krishnas. We're Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but people know us as the Hare Krishnas. Why? Because we're famous for Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This was the vision of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the prediction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and what was manifested by the power of Srila Prabhupada. And so these three personalities especially, Srila Prabhupada, also Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and also Mahaprabhu said, my names and this kirtan will be sung in every town and village, every town and city. So what's so special about the Mahamantra? You could say. There's so many mantras. Mahamantra is especially important because this Mahamantra is sadhana and it's sadhya. It's including the siddha state, the perfected stage of life, and the sadhana practice to get there. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur detailed how it corresponds to the stages of growth in spiritual life, as well as the connection internally to our aspired goal of relationship in the realm of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Radha Krishna both. And so that's why this is really a nice meditation, because each pair of the names, they correspond to a time of Gauranga's Leelas and of Radha Krishna's Leelas. And so, Krishna, Krishna, what is Mahaprabhu doing now? Krishna, Krishna, what is Radha Krishna doing? What are Radha Krishna doing now? And so, when we chant during the different times this day, we can gradually absorb our minds in the pastimes of Radha Krishna and Mahaprabhu. This is our process. Not just on Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna, even more so on their associates, and who we aspire to emulate, who we aspire to serve with and serve like and serve under their guidance. So therefore we say, Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahita bhava lipsuna karya braja lok anusarata. Braja lok anusarata. These are like the hub of the wheel of our spiritual sadhana. Following the footsteps of those who have that divine love and relationship to Radha Krishna. Following them, braja lok anusarata. Same thing Rupa Goswami said in Upadeshamrita 8. That anuragi jananugami, following the footsteps. So when we think about Radha Krishna, we're actually not meant to directly think of Radha Krishna. And we're not meant to directly think of Mahaprabhu. People think God is the goal. God is not the goal. Love of God is the goal. How do we get love of God? Find those who have it and serve them. Take shelter of them. So braja lok anusarata. When we meditate on Gaur Leela, it's more beneficial to think of the Gaur Bhaktas even. How they are serving Mahaprabhu. And so when we meditate on Radha Krishna, we meditate on how their associates are with them and serving them. And in a way that we aspire to be like. Whether it's following Mother Yashoda, or the Sakas, Madhumanga, Sridham, Sudam, Balaram, or the Sevaks, or Srimati Radhika and the Braja Gopis, Braja Devis. So this is a very important part of our understanding of spiritual life. When we say Krishna consciousness, you should ask, how can I become Krishna conscious? And then if you, like in any kind of material worldly sense, you want to become expert in some field, find those who are expert in that field and study them. In anything. That's why you go to school, you study history, and you study the experts, and you learn. Any book you read in school, it's like the knowledge passed down from very expert, intelligent people. So if we want to become Krishna conscious, study those who are purely Krishna conscious and try to serve them and take their guidance. So that's Braja Lok Anusharata. So I wanted to speak a little bit tonight about another thing I've been thinking about recently is the ABCs of the spiritual journey. And how a lot of the times we kind of say, oh, the ABCs, the ABCs, the ABCs. The problem is that if we skip over it and don't incorporate those principles in our spiritual life, then we may build a palace of cards with no foundation. It's going to crash down. So therefore the ABCs are reiterated again and again. It's the building blocks of everything else. So what are those ABCs for us in our spiritual journey? And that is actually given in this pair of the Mahamantra, Krishna Krishna, and the third verse of Shikshastakam. Some of the ABCs are actually given. And another reason those ABCs are so important. Just started. That's okay. Haribo, welcome, welcome. Shaho. Have a seat. Give some pillows. Okay, good. We're just getting through the preliminary points here. Tonight we're talking about the Mahamantra and the spiritual journey, as well as the Siddha state, or the meditation behind the Mahamantra. Oh wow, Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, welcome.
This is the house near mine.
Maybe one.
Spot over there if you want to sit on that side.
So there's also a really beautiful bhajan of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We'll sing as a little interlude after, in the midway. Really beautiful bhajan that he teaches about further elaborating on the mood of Trinadapi Sunichena. And it's a very important thing. So we're kind of talking about the ABCs of the spiritual journey and not skipping over those. It's like, reminds me of when I was a kid. I remember we saw this, my dad probably showed it, like a little Shirley Temple movie. And it was about a bum, and his little daughter, and he taught her how to spell and like really long words. Anybody know that? I have no idea where it's from, but if anybody knows that reference. Shirley Temple, it was really cute, little blonde hair. And he would go around and, go to dinner clubs and things like that. Do you know, Shana? I don't know.
It sounds familiar, but...
Anyway, so if we could relate it to the spiritual journey and skipping over the ABCs. He taught her how to spell like 20-letter words, and so anytime, because they would question, have you taught her anything? She's like your 7-8-year-old kid, and are you educating her as you're just a bum kind of guy. So you'd say, oh look, I educate her every day. Ask her how to spell this word. He says, spell this word. It's like 20 letters long. She does it perfectly. And he gets away with that a few times, so then one kind of intelligent lady says, how do you spell cat? And she's kind of nervous. How do you spell cat? She does it really compassionately because she wants to help the kid and the dad, She didn't know how to spell it. So sometimes in spiritual life, there's a risk that we get ahead of ourselves and we learn so much without learning the fundamentals and incorporating the fundamentals in our life. And that's why the ABCs are very important. They're the building blocks of your spiritual life. And so it's something that's good to remember because these are lessons that we can remind ourselves. We have our Bhakti Club, and what we were talking about was like, what are core verses that's like almost like daily reminders, for us to meditate upon. And so at this verse of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I would say this is one of the core verses for Vaishnavas, for Hare Krishnas, without a doubt. One of the core verses. So we'll chant that together. I know it's such a core verse that most of us probably know that. Trinadapi sunichena todoriva sahishuna amanadena kirtaniya sada. That's a beautiful, beautiful verse. When Mahaprabhu is writing these verses, he's like the same thing with our acharyas. They're writing these not as like, giving us instructions. They're feeling it themselves. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he writes these songs, he's feeling it himself. So that's also this first line talks about humility, as part of the ABCs of spiritual life, you could say. Talks about humility. And the beautiful thing about humility is that the higher you go, the more you feel it. And so that's one of the ways you can kind of gauge your spiritual progress. I've made a lot of advancement. Look at all these bums. That I'm like, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has a beautiful quote. He says, if someone takes my name, they get the worst sins upon them. I'm lower than a worm in stool. Those who merely utter my name accrue sin. That's his humility. Radharani says, I don't have a scent of love. She who is the embodiment and the essence of all love all love comes from her. She is the root, Swarup Shakti, that any sentiment of love and devotion you can have is coming from her original, that source of that divine sun of love. And yet she says, I don't have a scent of love. Is she like pretending? No, she feels that humility. Therefore, when Radharani goes to Braj in the forests, there's this part of the day, that this verse corresponds to is the pastimes of Krishna going into the forest, taking the cows and the calves and his friends, and also Srimati Radhika going from Javat to Surya Puja through the forest and to Radha Kund for the midday pastimes. So that's all in this Trinadapi Sunichena, this sadhana mind frame is corresponding to the siddha state of Krishna going into the forest with his friends, and Srimati Radhika, after she's returned home from cooking for Krishna and his breakfast, she's also now preparing to go to Surya Puja and to Radha Kund. So therefore, Trinadapi Sunichena, becoming humbler than a blade of grass. Humbler than a blade of grass. Gurudev often says, a blade of grass, you step on it. Yes, I think we should. You walk up, you go past it, and it's like straight back up. Sometimes Guru Vaishnava, Demar, chastise you. And you kind of like go into your shell for a little bit, but after a few more days, you again start to think like, I was chastised. Did they ever chastise you? I'm so close to Vaishnavas that I receive their chastisement. Humility is not something you can fake. A lot of people learn how to fake it, but it doesn't last. You know, it's like, you can fake it, but if you get poked the wrong way, like, oh, everything very soft and sweet, humble Vaishnav, oh, smooth. But if anyone finds that pressure point, oh, the real Swarup comes out. So, therefore we meditate on this lesson, becoming more humble than a blade of grass. Humbler than a blade of grass. Sunichena actually means lower, considering oneself lower. Therefore, sometimes we hear translation, lower than the straw in the street. Haridas Thakur had that mood. Haridas Thakur was so humble. They were beating him to death in 22 marketplaces trying to kill him. And they couldn't do it because he was chanting the names of Krishna and Krishna was protecting him, and he was spiritual personality. All his flesh came off his body. He was just bones practically. Tendons, you can imagine, you know, like not the passion of Christ, like the passion of Haridas Thakur. 22 marketplaces for hours. They were lashing him and all the flesh, and it was just like tendons and bones and just pouring out blood. Not once did he think, oh, these people are, tormenting me. Humbly accepted it. It's crazy, And then when they asked him, they were the guards who were doing it, they were starting to get like concerned. They thought, if we don't succeed in killing you, our families are going to be killed and we're going to be killed. And so they prayed to Haridas Thakur, please just die. They were thinking about themselves, just die, Haridas, otherwise what's going to happen to us? He said, okay. It just kind of like, he went into some state of samadhi, and he was attached. He was thinking, I don't want to cause pain to these living entities. He was thinking, I don't want to cause any pain to them and to their families. How humble. You can imagine someone who has tortured you, and you're just thinking, oh, if I don't die, it'll cause suffering to them. So let me give up my life. So he kind of just fell down. And they happily took him and threw him in the Ganga. And they went home without any sweat off their brow, you can imagine. And Haridas Thakur floated along the Ganga, and by Krishna's will, he skin, flesh, everything came back, and he came back outside. And that's why we say, you can't harm the Vaishnavas, the real Vaishnavas. You can try. You can't. Haridas Thakur was so merciful, he prayed that, oh Krishna, don't punish them for this. Don't punish them for this. Like we were talking about the Psalms, Oh God, strike down my enemies. Oh God, let them be destroyed. Not only my enemies, but everyone my enemies are related to, let them be destroyed as well. Don't spare the women and children. Kill them also. Oh God, let them all be destroyed. Their civilization, let it be destroyed. Why? Because they slighted me. God, your glory will be shown when you destroy my enemies, because I'm your devotee. This is not Trinadapi Sunichena. Haridas Thakur, he epitomized another ABC verse that we try to follow in our spiritual journey. What's that verse? Tateenu pampam susamiksamano bunjan evadma kritam vipakam pridvagvapurvir vidadan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadhayava. You want to succeed in your spiritual journey. You want success. Muktipade. You want to achieve that salvation. Okay, fine. This is the cost. Everything has a cost. The cost for your salvation is, you want that. Anything that bad that happens to you, you take it as your own due reward. I am being rewarded. This is my reward. The Lord is so merciful. He is giving me this wonderful reward. This is my karma bearing fruit. That's why we call it enjoying the fruits of your karma. Enjoy it. Everyone wants to eat the sweet, juicy mango. Sometimes you got to eat that bitter melon. Chew it down. Give me more. Give me more. It's not a masochism, We're not, like sometimes, we're not seeking that, because that becomes its own kind of, we're not seeking suffering. But we're accepting, we have acceptance. What comes, we accept it as our own just reward. You said we don't approach the Justice Department. We approach the Mercy Department. But in approaching the Mercy Department, we also have that mood that whatever is coming to me, I deserve worse. Then we can approach the Mercy Department when we're humble. When we're humble, then we can approach the Mercy Department. Otherwise we say, oh God, fie on you. You're no God, that you could cause this suffering to me. You're a wicked God. So when we become humble, then we can follow this verse. Whatever comes to me, I accept it as my just reward. I'm enjoying the fruits of my karma. It's called karma bhogna. It means to enjoy. So to enjoy the results of your karma without attachment, with acceptance. There's so many stories about that. We say that in spiritual life, when you get all the good things, it's more dangerous than when you get punished. And there's when the bhakti creeper begins to sprout, that means like the seed of your devotional life begins to sprout and blossom. Two leaves come. And the leaf has an upper side that's very smooth and a downside that's a little rough. The downside, kleshagni, means the fire of trouble, suffering. The top side is shubhada. Oh, everything's nice. So we see that in spiritual life, Especially if we go to India. Oh, we suffer. Everyone wants to go to India and think it's going to be paradise. Oh, you go to Vrindavan? Yeah, paradise. What happens? It's like you're paying money to get sick. Bought a visa, got your ticket, paid for the taxi and everything, got your room, paying money to get sick like a dog. And then you come home licking your wounds. But that's good. Burn it off. Burn it off. Good. Equally, let's say in joy, don't be overjoyed, and in distress, don't be overwhelmed in anxiety. What was that? So, I want to repeat that beautiful story, right? Maybe you can tell it if you like one more time to some new devotees who are here. I'm going to tell the story really quick. Or I can tell it if you like.
Which story?
So they had a dream, Shri Gurudev, right? And in the dream, Gurudev said this verse, right?
Oh.
It's a beautiful story.
Guess the verse.
Yeah. You want to tell the story? Oh, that's okay. Prabhuji had a dream where Gurudev was saying, do you know this Gita verse? And he was saying different verses, and then later Shamapriya, you had the dreams. See, this is a good way to do it. Now I'll remember it. She had the dream, and Gurudev was asking Shiranja Prabhu about the verse. And then later on, you didn't remember necessarily, you remembered Sukhi and Dukhi, the words. Yeah. And then in person, Gurudev immediately answered what the verse was, right? Dukeshu anadigdamanaha sukeshu vigatas pirya vitaraga vakrodas tikadir munir uchate, right?
Bhagavad Gita 2:56.
What is the purport? Right? Gurudev said this mood. Dukeshu anadigdamanaha, not to be disturbed in times of trouble, distress, and not to become maddened or overjoyed, right, in times of happiness. To be equipoised. To be equipoised. This is like a recurring theme in the Gita. Matra sparshastu kundeya sutushnat samadukada agama paino nityastam satikshasva bharata. This is part of the ABCs of spiritual life. Foundational blocks of spiritual life in your journey. That's why we say in the ashram, we have our meetings, right? When Daddy was there. It's good that it's cold. It should be more cold. It should be more cold. We don't pray to God for an easy life. We pray to God for the strength to endure all the challenges and obstacles that will come on the path. That's what we pray for. We pray for an easy life, you get soft, weak. And then when the challenges come, fold. You don't hold. Don't fold, hold. Like I say, it's not about winning or losing today, tomorrow, or in this year or the next year. It's about staying in the game and making forward progress. Staying in the game and making forward progress. That's spiritual life. Oh, I was successful. Today I chanted 64 rounds. Tomorrow I didn't chant 1 round. So I was successful today, but I failed tomorrow. What's the point? Stay in the game. Sankhya Purvakanam. So this is part of the ABCs of our spiritual journey. Tatenu kampam sushanikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvagva purvir virudan namaste jiveti o mukti pade sadayabak. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes a beautiful song, and I'll just go through the verses. That it corresponds to this verse. In the next line, being more tolerant than a tree. More tolerant than a tree. There's the story, obviously this is a very ready analogy, ready example for us. The Yamala, twin Arjuna trees. Right? You want to become tolerant like a tree sometimes, the Vaishnavas have to make you a tree to learn by practice. That was the case for Nala Kuber and Manigriv. You want to learn how to become more tolerant than a tree, become a tree. Then you learn what it's like to be a tree. And so Nala Kuber and Manigriv, they were the sons of the treasure of the demigods. It's a pretty good position to be. Dana Kuber was the one who funds all Indra's wars and his royal palaces and everything, and all the devatas. Dhanukuvera even gave money to Vishnu to have his own palace in South India. And Vishnu had to go in debt, and that's why there in South India he's holding out his hands and he's begging money, and everyone comes and gives him money because he's trying to pay off his debt. Trying to pay off his debt to Dhanukuvera. So his sons, they were like the original playboys. Complete rascals. Stealing other men's daughters and wives and enjoying like anything, and their whole purpose of life is just to enjoy. No sense control. The purpose of their life is just enjoy. So Narad Muni one day came along and he gave them a great boon, a great blessing. Best thing that ever happened to them. Cursed them to become trees. Now our Gurudev would say that was a great blessing. Because they had some, it wasn't just an ordinary curse, it was actually because he was the god brother of Kuvera. They both worshipped Sankarshan. And so Kuvera had actually prayed to Narad, my sons are complete rascals. Please help them. He said, all right, you sure you want them to be helped? So he went. And when they abused him, he smiled. He said, yes. You don't know how to control your senses? I'll teach you how to control your senses. So there's another ABC verse of spiritual life.
Vacho Vega. Detail though. I want to, because not everybody's familiar with that story.
It's a great story, yeah. I'll tell the details. So these boys were like princes of the god of treasure of the demigods, and they were enjoying in a lake in the heavenly garden, naked with many women, damsels, who were also all naked, and they were enjoying frivolously. And then Narad Muni, a great sage, great saintly person, was going by, singing, doing kirtan. And they abused him. Said, why are you coming here into our... Because, why did they abuse him? The ladies had some shame, and so they covered themselves. And so these two rascal boys were thinking, hey, bogus sadhu, you came here to see these naked women? Why did you come into our den, our brothel, disturbing us in our enjoyment? So they started harassing him. And he just listened peacefully, but they wouldn't give up. Like a barking dog, Wouldn't give it up. He said, okay, I bless you to become trees. Learn tolerance, learn humility. And it was a great boon. Why? Because he sent them to the spiritual, in this world, Prakrit. Krishna's abode in this world, Goloka, Gokula. And they became trees in Krishna's courtyard, Yamal Arjuna, twin Arjuna trees, like joined at the base, and then two trees sideways. So, not to get into the whole story, but the essence of it was they had to learn to be tolerant, because what do Arjuna trees do? Why did they become Arjuna trees? The Arjuna trees are famous for their bark. So these boys were barking and barking. So he made them trees that were famous for their bark. Now, I've never heard that connection, so I'm not saying that's a Brahman. But perhaps it's just an interesting note. They were barking and barking at Narad Muni, then they became a tree that's famous for their bark. Why? You peel off the skin of these Arjuna trees and you boil it, and it's very good for your heart. It's called Arjun Chao. You boil it and you make a tea and you drink it, and it strengthens your heart. So why did they need to strengthen their heart? Because their heart was very weak. So that's the third anartha. Hridaya Durbalya, weakness of heart. Weakness of heart. Okay, you want to strengthen your heart? Accept that position where for thousands of years they were growing, and then skin was taken off and cooked, and people were using it, and then they were growing and their skin was taken off and people were using it. Forced to learn tolerance like a tree. This is tolerance. A tree, there's the story, children's story, right? The giving tree. What's the giving tree? Right? The child played with the tree, played in the branches, took the fruit, took the shade, and then cut the branches, right? Made various things finally it was just down to its stump, and he sat on the stump. It was a place to sit, and the tree was always compassionate and affectionate for the child. So we say trees, they give everything. Everything of a tree is for others. Their shade, their fruits, their medicinal qualities, ultimately their body they give to others. So this is tolerance like a tree. So this is one of Mahaprabhu's teachings. And the other foundational ABC verse, which was relevant to these boys, was Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam jiva vegam udaka upasta vegam etan veganyo vishaheta dira sarvam abhimam pridivim sashishyat. You want to be a teacher? You want to be a guru? Learn how to control yourself first. Be a master of yourself before trying to be a master of others. Learn how to control your tongue. So many problems come from not being able to control your tongue. Gurudev would say, Mahabharat Ramayan. Uncontrolled tongue caused both. Blind son, blind father. Draupadi ridiculed Duryodhana. Thought, I will destroy them because they insulted him. We think, insulting someone, feels great. It's like really pleasurable to insult, especially if it's really like a good one. Something that really cuts deep, cuts to the bone. Oh, yeah. Today, my day was successful.
It's called a roast.
A roast. Burn. But what's the ramifications? We don't know. Mahabharata war, Gurudev said, uncontrolled tongue. Sita Devi, our goddess, she abused Lakshman, who was such a selfless sevak, selfless servant. Never even looked at her face. He was always serving Ram and Sita, left his own wife at home, was a brahmachari for that entire time of their exile. Took all privations upon himself, and yet she rebuked him with such, even in her moment of pain and fear, she didn't control that, and therefore she was kidnapped and suffered so much in all the subsequent trials for pastime's sake, but still, Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam, controlling the mind, controlling our urges of anger. I'm angry. I just want to. Sometimes when you become angry, it's like its own force that you don't know how to. It's like unless you unleash it, it's just going to burn you up inside yourself. So, okay, when you're like that, get your pillow, scream into it, walk outside, scream at the sky. Take a deep breath and be careful that you don't do it to a loved one or to somebody who's, someone you care about, especially. Haribo Dandavat. Bye-bye. Hey, welcome. Dandavat. Got a pillow for him? How to deal with anger. That's why we say it's the ABCs, because, in school, these are things that are supposed to be taught to children. What's a common one they tell you, right? 1, 2, 3, deep breath. Let it just pour through you. Just experience it and try to start thinking, like, why, what is that? What is causing that? And reflect. Instead of just reacting. Our nature is just to react. Whatever urge we get, we just got to blow that steam. But an intelligent person knows, just like the weather changes, my moods change, and my thoughts change, but to learn to become spiritually strong and realize that I am not necessarily those things, those emotions that are coming. And then I can learn to tolerate my own anarthas, right? We're talking about tolerance. Don't just tolerate others, learn to tolerate yourself and your own impediments, your own anarthas, the own junk you're dealing with, Tolerate that and try to start separating yourself from it a little bit. Meaning, those things that are flowing through me, I don't have to react from them, and I can learn that those aren't my truest self. So Arjuna asked Krishna in the Gita, it was, Krishna had already been speaking, it was like chapter and a half. So much good information, and Arjuna was thinking I want to follow it. Why can't I? I want to follow it. And so he said, Krishna, what is that force? What is that force that even though I know what's right and wrong, I still do what's wrong? I still cause harm to myself and to others. So what is that power and that force that impels me to do something even though my intelligence is telling me, don't do it, don't do it? So Krishna says, very, very dangerous enemy. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudbhava, mahasano mahapapma vidyainamiha veridam. Krishna says, yes, I acknowledge that there's a problem. Because Arjuna said, Chanchalam himana Krishna, I'm trying to control my mind, but it's more restless and difficult to control than the wind. And like when we go out on the cliffs, you want to control that wind when it's really gusting, when it's really blowing. It's not so easy. The mind is more difficult to control. So what do? So Krishna said, first understand the root of the problem, and then I'll give you tips and tools to deal with the problem. But first understand what it is. He said, actually, anger isn't its own thing. Anger is a subsequent thing that comes from calm. And calm is, we call it lust or we call it desire. And when it's not fulfilled, then it transforms into anger. And you can see that in so many stories, Ravan, the demons, the great demons, when they don't get what they want, they get angry. And then they try to get it by force. And so, kama esha, krodha esha, from lust that isn't fulfilled, when you don't get what you want, you get mad, and then it leads to all sorts of problems. So, Krishna says in the Gita then, okay, then I'm going to give you some lessons, He said, first of all, patience and practice. Spiritual practice. I'm telling you, these are your tools that you can use in your life to overcome these urges. They're just an urge. Prahlad Maharaj says in the 7th Canto Bhagavatam, if you can tolerate the urge to itch, scratching your desires, then you can become a muni, a sage. It's not that you don't have desires, it's that you know they're not you and you know how to tolerate them. And you can overcome them, and then when you have poison ivy, you scratch it, it gets worse and worse, and you spread it all over your body. Stop scratching it. Stita dir muni ruchite. Stita dir. Fix your mind and then become a muni. A sober person. A sober person who can tolerate the urges to speak, the mind's demand, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. They're qualified to become a master and a teacher. First, master yourself. This is an ongoing process, and sometimes people say, unless you're perfect, who's perfect? Show me a perfect person. They're very few and very rare, very far between. We have a few, we're very lucky that the pure devotees are in this world, but it's not every Tom, Dick, and Harry. But in the end of the 2nd chapter of the Gita, Krishna says, Apuryamanam achala pradishtam samudram apa pravishanti tasvat yamka shantim. That if you can learn to, like the ocean, tasvat yam pravishanti shantim. Like the ocean, all the rivers flow into the ocean. That means all desires flow into your mind. But you don't become disturbed. Like the ocean isn't disturbed. It remains it's in its own state. In the same way, we try to become Stita Dhir Muni Uchite. And he says, that's the path to Brahma Nirvana. This is what Krishna says in the end of Esha Brahmistiti Partha. When you become situated in that way, Brahmistiti, then Brahma Nirvanam gacchati. You begin to gacchati, go towards Brahma Nirvanam. That means completely transcending the modes of material nature. Kam and Krodh only come from Rajagun. So therefore, Rajagun means the mode of passion. Passion. We're so passionate. Especially in the West. It's the abode of Rajagun. Vedic culture was primarily Sattva Gun, and the kings had to incorporate some Rajagun. But the primary energy was Sattvic, especially Satya Yuga, that was the age of Sattva Gun. But Rajagun, and Krishna gives you the tools and techniques. Okay, how to reduce your lust, how to reduce your anger. Reduce those things that are rajasic in your life. Too passionate. That's why we have the regulative principles. Primarily there to help us curb our unbridled passions. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. Why? What does a gambler do? Passion. I have $1,000 today. If I just throw it in this Shiba, I can get $1 billion. I gamble it away, and then, oh no, it went away. Let me just put this one in. Let me put that one in. Gambling. Addicted to more and more and more. I'm not satisfied with what I have. I want more. This is in 16th chapter of the Gita. Krishna tells, Daiva Asura Sampad Yoga. What are the qualities of those who are demonic? What are the qualities of those who are divine? The qualities of those who are demonic is Ishvaro Ham Hambogi Siddho Ham Balavan Sukhi. I am God. Ishvaro, I am the controller. I am the enjoyer. I will do sacrifices and I will rejoice and enjoy my glory. All these great, I am such a wealthy, I'm the greatest philanthropist. It's a demonic mentality. The devotee's mood, I am the most fallen and insignificant. Srila Prabhupada would sign, right? A fallen and insignificant beggar. Fallen and insignificant beggar. That's why we say the more you advance, the more you become humble and you realize, I'm useless, I'm worthless. When you become humble doesn't mean to be like a doormat for everyone. So this is another side of it, So there's many sides and angles, One thing that Gurudev would often say, and Param Gurudev writes this in an article, a very beautiful article. And Gurudev gives the example of the epitome of humility being Hanuman. And he said, what was his greatest achievement in his humility? Burning down Lanka. That was his humility. Why? For Ram, I'll do anything. For Ram, supremely humble. And because of his love for Ram, he didn't hate Ravan, he loved Ram. So out of his love for Ram, he said, okay, if it's the desire of, and he asked permission, oh Sita Devi, to give me permission to do this. Is it your desire? She said, yeah. Stick it to them. So they caught his tail on fire and he burnt down Lanka, and that was his humility. So Param Gurudev writes an article, he said, true humility is, I shall kick on their face. It's a very advanced thing, I'm just saying that to give you some understanding that there's many angles and perspectives according to Adhikar. Oh, now I will be Hanuman. I will be the danda of my guru. I will be the punishing rod of my guru. First be Hanuman. First be Ram Sevak, be Ram Das. When Hanuman opened his heart, what was inside? Sitaram, Sitaram, Sitaram. So then we can burn down Lanka. If when there was a story, right? Hanuman was given a beautiful necklace, pearl necklace. All the Vanars that were given gifts, right? So Hanuman was given this necklace and he broke it. And he started biting open the pearls. looked in it, looked in it, looked in it. And they were like, I just gave you this beautiful pearl necklace and you just ripped it and started biting them up like pomegranate seeds. Why are you doing that? He said, I'm looking for the name. I'm looking for Sitaram, looking for Sitaram, looking for Sitaram. You're breaking open every pearl and looking for Sitaram. As if to question his, nishta. Yes. So is Sitaram also inside you? He said, yes. Show us. No problem. Sitaram, 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 Sitaram. That's Hanuman. That's humility. For him, what was in his heart? Ram. See, that's why it's a famous picture of Hanuman, right? Everyone's seen that picture of Hanuman. Inside his heart, not just like a metaphorical, like, heart with Krishna, heart with Sita and Ram. No, ripped open his chest and he showed in his heart, where his heart was beating to the rhythm of Sita Ram, Siya Ram, Siya Ram, Siya Ram, and Sita Ram is present there. Then he can show his humility. So there are many sides to this. The main thing is we say, sometimes love, the more powerful it becomes in a spiritual relationship, it can manifest there. Everyone can see Sitaram. Hanuman ripping open his chest. Jai Hanuman.
There's a lot of blood there.
Jai Hanuman. Famous story of Hanuman. So this is like a product of your mamata. Mamata means your mineness. For Krishna, he is mine. He's my heart. Therefore, Lochan Das Thakur, in his humility, he said, Jede se nitai nai, sede se na jabo. Nitai vi mukajar mukanahe ribo. I will not go to that place where my nitai is not welcome and present. I will not look on the face of that person who is opposed to my nitai. He said, you may bathe in the Ganga and be purified of your sins, but if you offend my nitai, there's no salvation for you. Haristane aparad, Tari Harinam, Tomastane aparad, Nahi Koitan. You may offend Lord Hari and get saved by his name, but if you offend the Vaishnava, you offend Nitai, offend my Lord, nothing can save you. Maja Mukha Kane said, I shall put fire in the mouth of that person who is opposed to my Nitai. This was his love and his humility. So I want to have a quick pause and read through these verses of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then we'll do one short kirtan of this, and then we'll jump to what Mahaprabhu is doing now, what Radha Krishna is doing now in this time of the day. Sorry, when we did some of these, we had like 8 copies before when we were doing the first section, but I don't know. I don't think this is in the songbook. Is it the Shiksastikam in the songbook? Maybe it's in there.
Shikshastakam?
The Shiksastikam songs.
Yeah.
Shri Krishna Kirtane Jadi.
It's 182, I think. Did you have the new one?
But there's a specific, pass me a new one. Specific one. Really beautiful song Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings. Yesterday, the last few days, we were talking really sweet katha, so I was thinking maybe this is let's balance the scales a little bit with some
There's a few.
tough love.
Which one is Shri Krishna?
Shri Krishna Kirtane Jadi.
Jadi, 186.
Alright, let's pass these around. 186. Really beautiful song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So this song corresponds to this Trinadapi Sunichena verse and this mood of
You guys need a book?
alright. Let's go around. Everyone, when you open the page, let's go around reading the verses, alright? Everyone, 186.
Yeah.
So that when we sing the song, we can kind of meditate on the meaning, okay?
Everyone good?
If you wish to engage your mind in the performance of Krishna Kirtan, then you must very carefully earn the required spiritual qualification.
Relinquishing your false pride, always consider yourself more lowly and insignificant than a blade of grass, destitute and worthless.
Cultivate forbearance like that of a tree, forsaking retaliation, nurture and support others.
In the course of leading your life, do not give anxiety to anyone else. For the benefit of others, forget your own comforts.
even if you are a great soul, endowed with all good qualities, relinquish the desire for honor and make your heart humble.
Knowing Shri Krishna will be situated within all living beings, always respect and show affection to all.
Endowed with the four qualities of humility, compassion, respect, and modesty, perform kirtan for the Lord of the Lord.
Bhaktivinoda, weeping at the feet of the Lord, asks, "Oh, when would you give me such qualification?"
Beautiful, huh? Especially this verse. Knowing Krishna is in the heart of all living entities, always respect and show affection to others. That's that third line of Trinadapi Sunichana. Amanina manadena. Always respect others without desiring any for yourself. Doesn't mean you won't get it. Don't desire it. If it comes, no problem. Learn how to, without pride, but always just looking to help and respect others. Especially these verses are so important, because what happens in spiritual life, we start advancing. The danger is then pride can come. And so that's why we said the fruit of learning is humility. If you become proud from your learning, then you haven't become learned. Such a beautiful song. Very important to meditate on.
Yeah.
Try to develop these good qualities. Humility, compassion, respect, and modesty. Thus perform kirtan of the Lord. Shri Krishna kirtane jodi manasato hara. Shri Krishna kirtane jodi manasato hara. Paramajatane tahi labhayadhikara. Paramajatane tahi labhayadhikara. Trinadikahina dina akinchana chara. Apane mano bisada chadiya hankara. Apane mano bisada chadiya hankara. Vriksha shama shama guna koro bisadana. Vriksha shama Pratihimsa tyaji anye koro vipalana. Pratihimsa tyaji anye koro vipalana. Jivana nirvahe ane udvegana dibe. Jivana nirvahe ane udvegana dibe. Parayupakare nija shuka pashari. Sarvagune Guni Mahashaya Krishnaya Dishtana Sarva Jive Jani Sada Okoro Visammana Shabe Adare Sarvada Dvaya Yanimana Pratishta Varjana Dvaya Yanimana Pratishta Varjana Hari Gune Guni Ho Koro Ho Kirtana Hari Gune Guni Ho Koro Ho Kirtana Bhakti Vinoda Khandi Bole Prabhupada Cake, now we're putting the icing on the cake, right? What is Mahaprabhu doing now? What is Sri Radha Krishna doing in this same time of the day? So this is called Purvana Leela. This is the pastime starting from about 8:30 a.m. to 11. So this is like the after breakfast pastimes. Technically 8:24 to 10:48. So it's very specific. What is Mahaprabhu doing now? What is Radha Krishna doing now? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very merciful. He gives us the Siddha state as kind of like something to, that sweetness to help keep us going on the path and encourage us on the path through all our kind of trials and troubles. But I would say if we can just summarize what we were talking about before, trying to learn that lesson of always being humble and kind, always being compassionate towards others, compassionate towards yourself. We're all on that journey, so acting from a place of compassion, non-judgment, acceptance, and humility. And if we do that, and we follow the process of bhakti, see these things, these qualities, these are things that help us practice real bhakti. So therefore we should also practice the actual part of bhakti too. Don't just, oh, I'm humble, I'm kind, I'm compassionate, but I never practice bhakti. So develop those qualities. But after you develop those qualities, as you develop, it says, Chari gune guni hao, koro ho kirtan, perform kirtan. Follow the process, chant Harinam. And what will you achieve as the result? Entrance into Krishna's Leela, entrance into Gaur Leela. And that Leela that is your inheritance, that is your destiny. That is the treasure of the wealth of praying that is meant to be relished. And so these first stages, they correspond to, Cheta Darpanam Arjanam, Baba Mahadav Agni Nirvapanam, Shreya Kairava Chandrika. They also correspond to the beginning verse of Shiksastakam. So in the Shiksastakam, it's kind of like these teachings are given to us to help us understand that just kind of go through these, tolerate, accept the difficulties that come to you without blaming others and attacking others, without lashing out and being angry, and learn to tolerate and control your urges or your senses. If you can just do that and practice that a little bit, very quickly you'll cross over those obstacles and start to relish the nectar of spiritual life. And so that's why in Shiksastika, Mahaprabhu says, Anandam Murivardhanam. You're going to be immersed in an ocean of bliss, Pratipadam Purna Amrita Swadanam. At every step, you're going to be tasting Purna Amrita, the completest form of nectar. What is that nectar? Amritasya Putra. We are children of that divine nectar. That is what we are meant to relish and experience. So therefore, spiritual life doesn't mean just, it's not like, the purpose of spiritual life isn't like self-mass, I have to just suffer and struggle. No. The purpose of spiritual life is to taste nectar. But those certain things that help you get to that stage must be incorporated, the ABCs. Don't skip over the ABCs and just learn how to spell big words. I know 3 or 4 big words, but I don't know the ABCs. What's the point? So, that's why these, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving us the roadmap in that song. And if we can meditate on those verses and try to incorporate those qualities and try to develop those qualities in ourselves, then it's very, very beneficial to ourselves in our life. And it's very beneficial to all those around us as well. So, Mahaprabhu's Leela at this time of day. So we can meditate upon this. When we chant japa, we can think, Mahaprabhu, what is he doing today? What is Radha Krishna doing at this time? So this time of the day, Mahaprabhu at nighttime almost doesn't sleep. He's always doing kirtan, sankirtan. He's just dancing in ecstasy all night. So therefore, after his bath in the morning in Ganga, he comes home, does his puja, his archan, takes a little breakfast, and then has a power nap. Power nap's bona fide. Radha Krishna take it, Mahaprabhu takes it. Proof is in the Sastra.
Who is he offering puja to?
Vishnu. Vishnu Shalagram. Vishnu Archan. So Mahaprabhu takes a quick nap. That's the end of the previous period. So that's why we see Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Swami Prabhupada, our Gurudev. Sometimes they take a little nap in the day. Why? Because at nighttime they're just doing bhajan and then they sleep a couple hours. So Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna also, they come home, they take a little nap. Short, 15-20 minutes. So Mahaprabhu took a nap and then he gets up and he stretches. That's why stretching is bona fide. A little bit of exercise. Gurudev would go on his morning walks. So it said Mahaprabhu, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, he gets up from his nap after breakfast and he stretches. Then he washes his lotus face with sweetly scented water, and then he goes and meets with his devotees. And then they do their favorite thing. They all get together and they party and do kirtan. So Mahaprabhu starts his kirtan in the morning. For Mahaprabhu, it's like every part of their day, they're just waiting to do kirtan again. It's like they do everything else in between, but they're just waiting, like, when can we get together? And for those who have been in like really, really ecstatic kirtan, you'll know why, because it's very blissful. Especially with great personalities like with Srila Gurudev, the kirtans we'd have with Srila Prabhupada, the kirtans, so powerful. So this kind of kirtan, this is our special practice. Kirtaniya Sadahari, Harinam Eva Kevalam, right? That Harinam Kirtan, that is Mahaprabhu, he's performing this. He's tasting and relishing the chanting of the holy names. In this way, he sports in the homes of the devotees sometimes in his own home. So he travels and he goes to different home programs. This is also why we do house programs, because Mahaprabhu does house programs. So this is like, we're Gaur Bhaktas. We're followers of Mahaprabhu. We go to each other's homes, we do kirtan, we have prasad, we speak about Krishna. Mahaprabhu does like this. So in the mid-morning, he goes and he does, he visits friends and families and houses, has programs. And then he also visits all the townspeople. So he'll kind of like, sometimes, he'll go through the markets and just, basically he goes on his transcendental tour this time of the day. So I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Shri Gaura Chandra. So that's why as Krishna is going out now, corresponding to Gaur Leela is Krishna Leela. At this time of day, Krishna is taking the calves to the pasturing grounds. So Mahaprabhu in his own way is also going out and traveling. So that's why sometimes, it's nice to do japa walks this time. Even short ones. Why? Krishna is going. And Vaishnavas, when Gurudev goes on this japa walk, it's not at that time, it's when Radharani is going from Javat to Nandagram to cook. That's Gurudev's morning japa walk time. Sometimes on japa walks in Hawaii, actually, North Shore, Gurudev was going on japa walks and people were asking questions, he didn't want to hear it. Why? Eternally he would say, I'm not here right now. I am on my japa walk. I am going to serve Krishna with Srimati Radhika and her party. So that is Gurudev's internal mood. There's so many beautiful descriptions of Krishna going to the forest. In the Srimad Bhagavatam is described. Very, very beautiful meditation. So, that's why we read the Krishna book by Srila Prabhupada, and we start to develop a mood of connection to Sri Krishna and his pastimes. So, there's a very beautiful 2 verses I'll sing here, but it's very sweet. It's the mood of Krishna going to the forest, and also what is Srimati Radhika's activity at the same time. So this is actually the time of separation. In the Maha Mantra, there's meeting and separation. When Radha Krishna are meeting, and when Radha Krishna are separated and trying to come back together. And so we see that at this time of day. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Dhenu sahachara sange Krishna bane jai range goshte jana anubrata hari. Radha shanga lobe puna radha kunda tatya vana jai dhenu shangi parihari. That Krishna goes with the calves and he plays in the forest. We don't have so much time. I don't want to, go too late. And what time is it, anyone? I want to go too late?
8:12.
8:12. Okay, so we're going to finish up here. I won't go into it then, but very sweet. So maybe more tomorrow. Talk more about just this Leelas. Krishna taking let's do it tomorrow then. Krishna taking the calves out to the forest, and all the sweet activities there. And at the same time, Srimati Radhika, she is outside her house in Javat, and she's looking on the pathway. When will my Sakhi come and tell me about news of Shri Krishna and where he's going? So it said, Krishnara ingita paya radha nija grihe jaya. Jatilagya loya surya chane. And then, by the order of Jatila, she's going to do Surya Puja. Gupte Krishna patalaki. She's on the path outside her home and she's looking. Katak shane aishe saki. When will my Sakhi come and tell me about the whereabouts of Shri Krishna? Vyakulita radha smarimani. I'm meditating on that Srimati Radhika who is in this anxiety for the association of Shri Krishna. On the other side, Krishna is taking the calves and he's with his friends, but he's thinking, Radha Shanga Lobe Puna Radha Kunda Tatavana Jai Denu Shangi Parihari. Towards the later part of this pastime, like around 10:30, Krishna will actually leave the calves and the cowherd boys, and with maybe Madhu Mangal or one boy, he'll go towards Radha Kund or to Surya Kund. And so he's feeling this mood of Radha Shanga Lobe Puna, agreed to be with Srimati Radhika. So we'll talk more about these pastimes tomorrow. Very sweet descriptions of how Krishna enters the forest of Braj and Veda Geet. So, most of the time, Gurudev is very merciful. He gives us sweet katha. But, in the last few days, we're talking a lot about Gurudev. So sometimes, especially with this verse, this is kind of the reason I was talking about this tonight is because This corresponds to Bhajana Kriya and Anartha Nibritti. Bhajana Kriya means following the process of spiritual life and dealing with your own crap, basically. Bhajana Kriya and Anartha Nibritti. Getting rid of all that stuff that's the blocks that's holding you from achieving your highest spiritual potential. So that corresponds to this time of the day. And it's very interesting because when Krishna goes to the forest, what happens? Many demons come out to play. So he has to wrestle and fight with many different demons. So if there's anything to take away from this, it's that when we're attacked on the road of our spiritual lives, pray to Krishna, and not just to Krishna, pray to the associates of Krishna, especially pray to our gurus, our Gurujan. Call out to them and then they'll come and save you. So that's why in the forest, when Krishna goes to the forest, and this is corresponding to these anartha stages, oh Krishna, how do I conquer over anger? Oh Krishna, how do I conquer over lust? Not on your own. Kam krodha kiva kurite pare jadi hoy sadhu janara sangha. What can lust and anger do to you if you are in the association of sadhus? Nothing. Sadhus know how to defang you. So you may still try to bite, but you don't have any venom. So that's the mercy of the sadhus. Therefore they say, Kam Krodha, they can't, as long as you're in sadhu sangha, you're protected. As long as you're with Krishna and Balaram, you're safe. Whenever Balaram, Guru wasn't there, Kaliya, Agasura, a lot of these problems, a lot of the biggest times, they came the closest to problems. The other times, demons came and they just dispatched them. Kaliya, the boys fell senseless. Agasura, they fell senseless as if they were dying from the poison. So, be with Krishna and Balaram, and you'll be protected. Be with the associates of Krishna. So therefore, Raghunath Das Goswami has a very beautiful verse. He says, Asat chesta kasta prada vikata pasali birima. That when I'm on my spiritual journey on the road of life, many dacoits come and attack me. And they tie my neck with a noose and start to drag me towards hell. What are those dacoits? Lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, pride. So when those come, when anger and lust, I'll fight with you, I'll defeat you. Raghunath Das Goswami says, no. Kuru Futkaran, call out to your gurus, call out to the Guru Varga, and they will come and save you and protect you and chase away these dacoits. So that's ultimately, the lesson for us. And that's why these verses about the ABCs, what's the last line? Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Always call out. Perform kirtan. Call out. Kirtan is the remedy. Kirtan is the way. Kirtan is the way. Kirtan helps you conquer over everything. Kalir dosha nidhi rajan. The age of Kali, there's so many faults. Don't look at that. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mukta sangha parampraja. By Krishna Kirtan, everything is resolved. Everything is solved. So therefore Prabhupada would say, so many meetings, so many resolutions, but no solutions. Chant Krishna Kirtan. Perform Krishna Kirtan. So that's the best way to conquer your internal demons and any obstacles that come in the path. Krishna Kirtan, Krishna Kirtan, Krishna Kirtan. Krishna Kirtan means calling out. Vaishnav Kirtan, Guru Kirtan, Nityananda Kirtan, associates of Mahaprabhu Kirtan. That's Kirtan. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri, Gauda Bhakta Vrinda. Perform Krishna Kirtan, then you can develop humility, tolerance, respect for others, and all these qualities. Perform Krishna Kirtan in Sadhu Sangha. That's the lesson. So, we'll stop with that for today. One quick story, 1 minute, while Shad's getting ready, okay? Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada were once in his Prabhupada's quarters in Krishna Balaram Temple, Raman Reti, Vrindavan. Gurudev Prabhupada, and it was at this time of day, that's why I want to tell this story. This juncture after breakfast. Prabhupada would send his car, the ambassador, and he would send his sevak, and he would bring Gurudev from Mathura to Vrindavan. Almost every day, this was in the late 70s. And Gurudev would come and visit for months. Whenever he was there, he would spend time with him, and they would talk and have discussions, because they were very close friends. So one time, Prabhupada asked him to speak on Shikshastakam. And at that time, he had many of the Goswamis from different temples come. And they were glorifying Prabhupada and his accomplishments. And then Gurudev spoke a little bit about Sri Shastakam. And then afterwards, he asked him to do kirtan. And while Gurudev was doing kirtan, it was around this time of day, 9:30, 10, and the room was packed full of the devotees who were there and different guests. And the kirtan, Gurudev was singing in such a heartfelt, beautiful way. Srila Prabhupada started having some tears, and Srila Gurudev began to weep as well. And as they were weeping, outside of their room, people started to hear some noises, like a bugle, flutes, ringing of bells, conch shells, and they were thinking there must be some kind of procession going on outside. But the Vaishnavas were present there with Sri Gurudev Prabhupada, the Sevaks. They said, no, Krishna is passing. This is Raman Reti. Krishna and Balaram every day, they pass by this way with the calves and the cowherd boys, and everyone's blowing on their bugles, blowing on their conch shells, playing the flutes, dancing merrily along, ecstatically, singing and dancing. So at this time, Srila Gurudev was doing this kirtan, and because of their absorption in kirtan and their spiritual potency, for them it was like Krishna Lila directly manifested right there in Raman Reti. Why? Adhyapya Sri Lila Kore Gorarai, Kono Kono Bhagyavan Adhiki. Those pastimes of Krishna are still going on in Vrindavan. Those pastimes of Mahaprabhu are still going on in Navadvip and Mayapur. Those who are very fortunate can see them. So our Srila Gurudev, our Srila Prabhupada, they're mercifully giving us an entrance and a portal, a vision into that realm. And by taking shelter of them, certainly we can also enter that realm. So therefore, ultimately, that's the, that is our goal. Vanchakalpatribhishta kripa sindhavevcha patidanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So while the